The thought hit me the other day. I've been following this story about the Iranian women's national soccer team. And they were playing in the Asia Cup a week or two ago in Australia. And we all know the situation that's going on in Iran because of the brutal, tyrannical, anti-gay, anti-woman regime in Iran. And why women and why feminists haven't been protesting this for years and years and years has always baffled me. They throw gays off buildings. They stone them to death. It's against the law to be gay. And women are treated abominably as second-class citizens. They got to wrap themselves up. They need permission to go out without a relative or a husband or a family member. It is absolutely deplorable conditions. And over the years, not a peep out of the feminists. Remember after October 7th, when all those Israeli citizens were murdered in the terrorist attack? And then on campuses, sprung up on campuses all over America. Free, free Palestine rallies. Free, free Palestine. And students and professors actually supporting the murders of the Israelis on October 7th. I remember I was in New Orleans around that time, and there were protests on the streets. Free, free Palestine, beating the drums and people chanting, and college campuses all over the country. Most of these college students are stupid and have no idea what they're talking about. The gays for Palestine was the funniest ones, and the gays for Gaza. You know what happens over there if you're gay? Yeah, try going over there and announcing you're gay. I mean, the hypocrisy and the stupidity of these college protesters was just unrivaled. But it struck me during the protests, protesting that brutal, murderous dictatorship in Iran that's been around now since 1979. But the people finally rose up a couple of months ago and said they'd had it with the oppression. They've had it with the tyrannical government, with the Islamic fundamentalist government. They want to be free. And 30,000 of them were murdered by the Ayatollah and the tyrannical Iranian regime when they were out on the streets protesting. Hanged, shot, beaten to death, stabbed. 30,000 deaths. It was absolutely a travesty. A horror show. But on college campuses all over America, did you see one free, free Iran protest? Free, free Iran. Free, free Iran. Free the gays and the women from oppression. Free, free Iran. Not one. Nothing. Free Palestine rallies. Remember, they stopped Jewish students from going to campus. The anti-Semitism on college campuses was unrivaled. The bigotry against Jewish students and Jewish people. But no free Iran rallies. Interesting. Well, we all know the reason why. It's because anything that would be construed as pro-Trump or as supporting Donald Trump and the regime, they'd rather see thousands and thousands of people die than give him credit for anything or making any progress in this situation. But the hypocrisy is just overwhelming. So anyway, a couple of weeks ago, the Asia Cup was going on in women's soccer in Australia. And the Iranian women's soccer team, to their credit, a credit to their courage and their fortitude, they refused to sing the Iranian national anthem over the slaughtering of Iranian protesters by the brutal regime. And then 7 of them asked for asylum, which was fantastic. And Australia immediately agreed to take them in and give them asylum. And, of course, they were called wartime traitors, and their lives were threatened by the Iranian regime, and their families' lives were threatened. And they were doing it in solidarity with the 30,000 protesters in Iran who were murdered and massacred. And then over the course of a week or so, 5 of these 7 players changed their mind and said they wanted to go back to Iran. Now, 2 of them have remained, and they're now playing for the Brisbane Roar, which is a women's professional soccer team in Australia. But 5 of them changed their minds and said that they wanted to go back. Now, we all know why, don't we? The reason why they wanted to go back is because their lives were threatened and their families' lives were threatened by the Iranian regime. That's why they wanted to go back. So it's a tough choice. If you go back, you're going to be persecuted. You're going to be in trouble. Just the other day, a 19-year-old champion wrestler from Iran was hanged in public for protesting against the government. See, that's what they're going back into. So it's a choice of whether I'll stay here and take asylum and save myself in Australia, or my family members will be locked up, they'll be murdered, they'll be hanged, they'll be shot, they'll be raped, because that's what's going to happen to their family members if they don't go back. So I guess they figure, well, if they do go back and throw themselves on the mercy of the government and maybe they can save themselves and their families, who knows? But 2 remained, and they're playing for the Brisbane Roar right now. Now, let's talk about Megan Rapinoe here for a minute. Now, I use Megan Rapinoe because she seems to be the most outspoken and the most outrageous of all the female activist athletes. And in large part, most of the female athletes in the United States, at least, seem to be anti-American. Always protesting Donald Trump, always protesting American policies, say they're in support of LGBTQ rights, except if you're an Iranian woman, I guess. They make the exception with that. No protests over that. But the utter hypocrisy of Megan Rapinoe while this was going on, she always has something to say, doesn't she? Always protesting, always taking a knee, always ripping America and usually what America stands for. But in this case, total and complete silence, and she has just been getting hammered and ripped over her blatant hypocrisy in media. Piers Morgan ripped her. So I read an article on Outkick that was ripping her, and even an article on ESPN that was criticizing her for her blatant hypocrisy. Now, one thing about Megan, when I was living up in Portland years ago, I was doing middays. I was doing a midday radio in Portland, doing local sports talk up there. And she was playing for the University of Portland. So she came in once into the studio, was promoting something, and we talked soccer. We didn't really get into politics or anything. She was a lot younger then. Really nice. I liked her. We had a nice conversation, and then she left, and she was a local soccer player. But and she's gotten more and more radical, more and more extreme over the years. That's fine. She can believe in whatever she wants to believe in. Can you at least be consistent, though? Can you at least not be a hypocrite? Can you at least point out murder and rape and oppression against women and gays, especially in other countries? Can you not come out and support strongly the Iranian women? Nothing, not a peep out of her. And then she got ripped on Piers Morgan the other night for hypocrisy. So finally,
Dave Smith Unleashed, brought to you by MTS Transportations. And mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment for all your shipping, trucking, and freight needs. There's only one business to call, and that's MTS Transportations at 800-640-6873. MTS Transportations, 800-640-6873.
2 weeks after the fact, and of course, this is because of pressure, and this is because of everybody ripping her, on her podcast with her wife, Sue Bird, who's a WNBA player, she lauded the bravery and the courage of the Iranian women. Praised the Iranian women for their bravery. 2 weeks later, you know her heart's not in this. She doesn't give a shit about any of this. She's doing this because she was under enormous pressure because of her blatant hypocrisy. She would have come out a lot sooner than 2 weeks if her heart was really in it. Her heart is not in this. She doesn't care. Nobody, none of the protesters, nobody on the left here in America, none of the people on the college campuses give one damn about what's going on in Iran, what's happening to gays and women over there. It's just unbelievable, isn't it? Free, free Palestine, free, free Palestine, over and over again. College campuses all over the country, blocking Jewish students from going to campus, praising the 10/7 murderers who murdered all the Israeli citizens. Free, free Palestine. College professors, faculty members, students everywhere. But then the Iranian protests happened. 30,000 cold-blooded murderers of protesters by the brutal Islamic dictatorship in Iran. No protests, nothing on college campuses, nothing from Megan Rapinoe. Where are the free, free Iran protesters on college campuses? Women have no rights. Gays have no rights. They're slaughtering people in the streets. They killed 30,000 people who are trying to get their freedom in Iran. Nothing. Nothing on college campuses. Nothing from Megan Rapinoe, who was a complete hypocrite. I don't care if she went on her podcast yesterday and the day before and praised the Iranian women for their bravery and courage. If you do it 2 weeks later, if you only do it because you're being pressured, if you only do it because you're so embarrassed about your own hypocrisy, spare me, Megan. We know your heart's not in it, and we know you're full of shit. You're bullshitting. You don't care. Yes, they were brave. Absolutely. And I wish the whole Iranian women's soccer team would have asked for asylum in Australia. But, it's a very, very tough situation. If you don't return, your family is going to be imprisoned, raped, tortured, killed, murdered, shot, stabbed, you name it, by this brutal regime. So if you do get asylum and you do get a better life in Australia, you're condemning your family members to the worst horrors imaginable. What happened to those 30,000 protesters? So, no, Megan Rapinoe, you're still a hypocrite. I don't believe a word of what you said. It took 2 weeks for you to say something. It took enormous pressure for you to say something. And then this lukewarm, I admire their bravery and their courage. And how about, would you ever admit that Donald Trump was right about something? I'm sure in the same breath, you'd say, well, Donald Trump started an unjust war. There's no reason to go over there in Iran. There's no reason for a change. There's no reason for a regime change. Oh, really? There's not, huh? After 30,000 deaths of protesters. But see, this is the reason why Megan Rapinoe and the rest will not stand for Iran. Well, they won't stand for anything that Donald Trump is in favor of. That's the bottom line. It's Trump derangement syndrome. No matter what it is, if he's for it, I'm against it. Even if he's right. If he's for it, I'm against it. And let's have no illusions about this. The reason Megan Rapinoe and the female athletes and the feminists in the United States aren't standing up for these Iranian women's soccer players, aren't fighting against Iran's brutal anti-women, anti-feminist, anti-gay dictatorship. The reason there aren't college campus protests, free Iran, free Iran. Because any support of the Iranian freedom fighters would be, they think, construed as support for Donald Trump. And the Trump derangement syndrome takes precedence over everything, even saving lives, even overthrowing brutal dictatorships, even protesting murderous regimes. So, no, Megan Rapinoe, I don't believe you. I don't think anybody does. You're a hypocrite, as are almost all the rest of the female athletes and the feminists who are not protesting, who are not chanting free Iran, who are not organizing protests. And this goes for you as well, college students. Well, that's it for me on Dave Smith Unleashed. Make sure to tune in we do about 3 shows a week here on Dave Smith Unleashed at the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast. And make sure you follow us on the Dave Smith Athletes podcast on YouTube and on Twitter at Dave Sports God. And we'll talk to you next time right here on Dave Smith Unleashed.